17, I joined the United States Army, and I stayed 24 years. And I retired as a military intelligence officer, if you can put those two words together. First time I ever heard about dowsing, and we didn't call it dowsing then, we called it water witching. And no one would start digging this big well, 8 foot in diameter, just down as deep as the water was, unless somebody said there was water down there. So every community had somebody they called the old water witcher. They called him, and he came out and he found a peach tree, and he cut a forked stick off of it and walked around, and pretty soon this stick pulled down. Dig here and you find water. And sure enough, every time that happened, you dug there, you found water. But the first time I ever tried it, he pitched his stick over there when he got finished with it. When he got out of sight, I picked it up, and I just a little guy, walked across here the way and held it the way he did. This stick pulled down. And back in those days, you didn't have a Toys R Us down the road. We didn't even have a road, you know. So if you wanted to be entertained, you found something to entertain yourself. So that sort of kept me, you know, I'd walk from every direction. This stick would pull down. And never thought a heck of a lot about it until I retired from the Army, and I bought 75 acres on a farm there on a hillside there in northwest Arkansas. And it didn't have a well on it. So I just happened to remember that, hey, that used to work. So I walked back and forth across, and one spot this pulled down. Just one spot. And I got the well driller out there, and he drilled down, and he found the most beautiful vein of water, and that was 20 years ago, or over 20 years ago. And now there's 3 families taking water from that one well. So just a beautiful vein of water, and that's what dowsers usually find. We call it live water, or, you know, it comes from deep in the earth, and it's under pressure, and anyway, that's the kind of well. But what got me interested, being in military intelligence all those years, you know, you get a little piece of the puzzle, and you just try to build a picture around it. Well, I started trying to build a picture around, you know, what the heck is pulling the stick down? I'd hold it just as tight as I could, and that thing would pull down. Well, here come this dowser out, and he was dowsing over here, and he found a vein of water about 12 foot from where this dry hole was. And by some miraculous means, he went to his pickup, and he got a crowbar and a hammer. And where this vein of water was, he drove this crowbar down in this, right over the center of this vein, and he hit this thing with a hammer, and this water turned and the well filled up. I said, oh, come on. I mean, how in the world could this happen? You know, how could that happen? But anyway, I never discard anything. I just sort of file it back. But then I'd been practicing map dowsing and all that stuff. The very next journal that came out, somebody wrote a letter and said, hey, you don't have to go out there and drive your crowbar in. All you got to do is get a piece of paper and draw that person's property. You know, it could be a mile or 1,000 miles away. Say this is so-and-so's property, put a little dot, this is the dry well, and then you douse this thing. You say, is there a vein of water on this piece of property here that I can divert into the well? And if your pendulum tells you yes, then you find out where it's coming in and you trace it down through there. And then what you have to do, once you get this vein marked on this little map, you get a ballpoint pen and you put right in the center of the vein you marked on there, and you get another ballpoint pen and you just knock the heck out of it toward that well, and the well will, you know, the water will turn and go in the well. And I thought, man, what kind of an organization have I joined here anyway, you know? So I don't even understand what's pulling the stick down, you know? So I didn't discard that. I just sort of filed this back. I just sort of, you know. But about that time, my daughter and her husband bought 3 acres up on top of a hill about 12 miles from me. And once they moved in, this has a 420-foot drilled well on it. They moved in, and she discovered that there was not enough water in that well to do 1 cycle of wash. You know, it'd go dry. 2 stories popped back into my mind. And I said, no sweat, Joyce, I've discovered how to fix your well. And she just sort of looked at me funny, and, you know, she had thought I was crazy anyway. But I pulled out these 2 journals and reread those stories. Now, those things, ASD has been around since 1961. And it's really a respected little magazine, and those were written as the gospel truth. So, you know, I'm just going to try it. I'm going to go by the directions in that book, in that journal. So I just drew a little map of her. I said, this is Joyce's property. And I said, just ask my pendulum, ask the universe, is there a vein of water going through that property that I can divert into that well? This thing told me yes. And I said, okay, where's it entering the property? So I went across and see where it entered, and then I just sort of traced it on down. And it was only about 6 feet from the well. I thought, well, what have I got to lose? I really want my daughter to have water. And, I really, really want her. I love her, and I just, I hate to see her sad and, and discouraged. And so I got my I put that on there. I got my ballpoint pen. And I got another, and I just knocked the heck out of this thing. Boy, I was just hitting it. And I thought, well, if that's going to work, that ought to do it. And about 20 minutes later, my daughter called. She said, Dad, have you been messing with my well? I said, yeah, did it work? She said, I don't have any water at all now. Anyway, I said, well, this was about 8 o'clock that evening. I said, I'll come up tomorrow morning. We'll see if we can figure out what the heck I done. So the next morning, I threw my dowsing rods in the pickup and my crowbar. This time I'm going to do it with a crowbar and a hammer. And I went up there and I drove in like the well was here and the driveway is here. I thought the vein was between the driveway and the well. I got in my pickup, walked across there. I didn't find a vein of water any place. I kept walking. I found one over here. I thought, well, maybe I just knocked that thing over there, So anyway, just by process of, I had a little L rod, and I don't have one with me, but I could find out which direction that vein is flowing. And it took me upstream about 12 foot. So this time I got my crowbar and I drove right over the middle of this thing. And this time I said, how many times should I have to hit this bar to make the water go in the well? I didn't want to knock it off that hill. And this told me, I think it said 7 times. So drove that crowbar down there. I got down there, but this time, as I was hitting the crowbar, I had projected my mind down into that vein of water. An underground vein of water is just like an above-the-ground creek. It just meanders around. But I just sort of projected my mind down there, and every time I would hit that bar, it looked like the vein was just going toward the well. And the last time I hit it, the 7th time or whatever it was, it looked like the thing just went into the well. So pretty soon I got my Y rod and I walked across there. Sure enough, it looked like that vein was going right into the well. And still I had, I'm one of the world's greatest skeptics on a lot of this stuff, So I went in and I started turning the kitchen sink on. She said, wait a minute. I said, what? If you haven't had water, you don't want one drop to go down you haven't used. So she got all these pans and was filling up all these pans. And so we filled up all the pans. This water just kept on running, and she was absolutely amazed. She'd never had that much water, and I was totally amazed. And I thought, good Lord, did I have something to do with this? She'd never had any water before. Now this well is totally pumping water like crazy. And short time later, that pump went out, and we had to pull the pump, put a new one in. And I thought, well, this is a good time to see how much water is in that well. That water was within 30 foot to the top of that. And so, when you do something and it works, you cannot argue with it. I mean, it was there. The water was not there, yesterday. Today it's there. And so I was totally in awe, and I could have floated off. I didn't have to drive my pickup home. I was just up like that. And so that really did turn me on, and I just, man, what is this energy? What is this stuff?